and get a Zipa so you can stop snoring and enjoy the summer. We are glad to be back and better than ever here. Mike and Mike. Gordon Hayward, Mike, they ask us to put someone in the zone every week, and we'll certainly put Gordon Hayward in the zone. Here's a guy, I'll admit it, and I give him a lot of credit. When he came out of Butler, he had a shot in the air that would have beaten mighty Duke to win the national championship, and then he had a decision to make. I was actually just reading his piece in Players Tribune in which he announced his decision to leave, and he wrote glowingly about Utah.
Yes,
and you know what? I can see all the fans in Utah just looking at it and going, blah, blah, blah. You still left us. At the end of the day, what's he going to do? If he wants to go play in Boston, if he wants to go someplace he thinks he has a better chance to win, if he wants to be reunited with his college coach, if he wants to make a decision he thinks is best for himself, there isn't any way to do it that isn't going to hurt the feelings
that's exactly
of the fans you leave behind. I thought he wrote a really nice, heartfelt, felt like very honest piece in which he talked about growing up. He writes, Mike, that he was 20 years old when he got to Utah. He and his dad drove there in his car from Indiana, that the only thing he knew was how to get to practice. He knew where the Subway was. I don't mean that in a New York sense, but the Subway sandwich where he ate all the time. Right. And he went home and played video games. And that was it. That was his whole life. And now here he is 7 years later. He has a wife. He has 2 kids. And he basically writes thank you to Utah for helping him grow up and helping him turn into a man. And now he leaves, and what's he going to do?
It's really kind of a no-win situation.
It's no-win.
You can just leave and not say anything of which you'll get ripped, and you can leave and write a 2,100-word essay and thanking people, and people will look at that as, oh, get out, delete, not even reading it. I mean, so it seems like I don't know him at all, but, you just kind of explained how the start of his 7 years were there, and I think he truly is going to miss where he was, but he's moving on to what he thinks is going to be greener pastures. That's what free agency is all about. The team you leave, those fans, that doesn't mean they have to understand, and accept that, and that's fine. But I like what he wrote. I thought it was nice what he said. But I can understand if people there say blah, 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 move on, we'll see you.
Meanwhile, in Boston, they're obviously excited to get this player, and you want to make the obvious Larry Bird connections and comparisons as he goes to Boston. Hayward grew up in Brownsburg, Indiana. That's about 2 hours from French Lick. He played college basketball at Butler. That's about an hour from Indiana State. And both Hayward and Bird lost their final college basketball games in the national championship game. So there are all of those comparisons as he goes now to play for Larry Bird's former team and tries to lift them to the levels that Bird once took them. This kid is not Larry Bird by any means, don't get me wrong, but he is a very good player and a very nice piece to the puzzle. The question remains, do the Celtics have a transcendent player? And if they don't, and one could argue they don't, Isaiah Thomas had a phenomenal year, and Hayward is really good, and Horford is really good. But the question is, can you put together a collection of, do you want to call them A-minus players? And can you do that and win a title in the NBA? The last team to do it would be the Pistons when they won it with Larry Brown, whatever year that was. They beat the Lakers, 2004, I think it was. That's the last team to win a championship without a surefire first-ballot Hall of Fame all-time great.
I think we have to understand that Danny Ainge, while he had a plan, and I think they would have rather had Paul George than or both, but if you were going to pick one or the other, you'd rather have Paul George, right? Basically the same age.
Well, the only difference is that George you're only getting for 1 year. This guy now you're getting to build around. But in a vacuum, yes, George is a better player than Hayward.
Is a better player than Hayward. They've liked them both, but they got the one. I think what we have to understand is a lot of people got on Ainge for not making that move when they were number one in the conference last year, and maybe try and do something this past year, be it George or be it with Jimmy Butler at that time, who has gone on to Minnesota. But he had a plan, and everybody's trust the process. The Sam Hinkie line there is trust the process. I think what we have to wait for in Boston is this isn't over. You don't accumulate all the picks that you have and put yourself in position to say, that's our move. That was it. Gordon Hayward, we're good. Because you're not beating Cleveland now with the team you have. If you still have to give up, maybe Smart or
Crowder.
Crowder, still may be gone from this team.
A salary cap perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this isn't it. So it's not like I'm looking at this saying Danny Ainge just got the finished product to the Celtics. He didn't, but he got a nice piece that's going to be there for a little while. But does anybody think? You all saw that series last year, right, with Cleveland?
Yeah.
We all saw that. Do we think that is going to be different? Maybe a little closer now, but Would Cleveland not be heavily favored again? And I know people are going to say, oh, you're from Cleveland. No, I mean, would anybody realistically think if Cleveland stayed exactly the same and the Celtics added Hayward, or have to lose some pieces there, that now, oh, yeah, they're going to be Cleveland and represent? They're not. So I guess that's what I would say is Danny Ainge isn't done, whether it's now, a little while from now, trading deadline, next year, whatever. They still have a lot of assets to use, so he doesn't have the finished product yet. And just what everybody is doing. Look at all the moves that are going on. Everybody's just kind of building. What can we say from everything we saw? We'll break it down, but I'll give you one overlook right now. It's Cleveland and Golden State in the finals next year. Does anybody think any differently? This was the first, because did anything, the question you have to ask, did anything happen in the West? Because that's where everybody went. Gordon's the first star to come over to the East.
Yeah.
Everybody went West, young man, to go against Golden State. Did any team build themselves up enough at this point that you say they can beat Golden State? And is any team in the East, ready to beat Cleveland? And the answer is no. So I don't know if anybody expected a 1 year. Maybe they thought the teaming up. Maybe they thought, that the Paul George would end up in Houston with Chris Paul and James Harden, that maybe that would be something that they would form once we saw Chris Paul go there. Carmelo Anthony, I don't think, forgetting Cleveland, because Cleveland's already the favorite in my eyes to make it back to the finals. So if Carmelo goes to Houston, do we think that's doing it? Do we think all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's the piece? We don't. So while all these moves happened, none happened, I don't think, at this point where you say this year anything is going to change, but it's tough to do in 1 year. Remember, Golden State had the big three to build off and added Kevin Durant. The others are trying to accumulate a big two or a big three and then build from there.
And by put Gordon Hayward in the zone. That's brought to you by AutoZone. Drive the new Duralast GT brake pads, proven tough from the tracks to the streets, and sold only at AutoZone. Get in the zone. AutoZone. Let me further illustrate how right you are. You are right, and I think you're making an even bigger point, which is this is an indication of just how much distance there was between Cleveland and everyone else and Golden State and everyone else, because the top contenders did get much better. Boston just added an all-star.
Yes, they did.
Added an all-star. Yes. Oklahoma City added an all-star. Houston added an all-star. And yet none of them are threatening. And I agree with you that none of them even remotely look like a threat to Golden State or to Cleveland. So that is more an indication. Cleveland beat Boston 4-1. They outscored them by a combined total of 100 points. It's the most one-sided conference final in NBA history. I thought all of it was in Game 2.
Right. Yeah.
They won Game 2 100-0.
They did.
So that distance, so the Celtics drafted this kid, Jason Tatum, who I like, who can score, but he's a 19-year-old rookie. And they added Hayward, who's a very good, but in my opinion, not great player. Maybe he's a great player, but there's a level above great.
Right.
He's not on the level
no, he's not.
with the apex players in the NBA, of whom there are maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah, he's not a superstar status. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So he's a really, really nice piece to the puzzle. But you need to have one great player, or you're just kind of waiting out and hoping Cleveland leaves. The way we do our rankings of NBA players, our analytics group puts together rankings. Out of the top 14 players in the NBA, how many of them do you think play in the Eastern Conference?
1.
Correct.
I saw it. It's LeBron.
You saw it. It's LeBron. He's the only one. LeBron James is the only one of the top 14 players in the NBA who play in the East. So that would actually, Mike, lend credence to your theory that he wouldn't leave. Why would you leave Cleveland and go play with the other 13 best players when you can have all the worst players and have to just beat them and then only have to beat one of those teams
in the finals,
on the other side? I saw conflicting reaction to the decision of Chauncey Billups to pass up on the Cavs GM job. Right. On the undefeated, meaning Chauncey, talked about how this was just about the timing. It wasn't about LeBron. I saw a lot of other people saying, yeah, of course he's going to say that, but at the end of the day, it is about LeBron.
Right.
Who knows? Who knows where the reality lies? But one way or another, as long as LeBron is in Cleveland right now, they look like a walk.
Well, they do,
the
and it's all intriguing, with Jimmy Butler. What's going to happen in Minnesota? They do trade Rubio away, but I mean, what's developing there? I still like what's going on in Milwaukee. What happens in Houston? Oh, by the way, what can Chris Paul do after this year? He can leave, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, while some guys have the longer deals, we talk about the stars moving around. Chris Paul can do it again next year.
So can Paul George.
So, yeah, exactly. So we don't even know where they went this year. They'll make those teams better, but then we don't even know what's happening next year. That'll be the big buzz because that's when LeBron will be free. Will everybody be going somewhere together at this point?
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I'll tell you who I give a lot of credit to and who I respect the heck out of, and that is Sam Presti. I mean, he and the Thunder are not going quietly into that good night. They have every conceivable disadvantage. This is a guy who drafted Kevin Durant. He drafted Russell Westbrook. He drafted James Harden. He couldn't afford to keep them all because this was in the days before the big salary caps. So he moved Harden. He moved, well, I was about to say the right one. Who knows if it was the right one. But he moved a guy when he felt that he had no choice but to do so. Otherwise, they'd still be together. He did everything he could to hang on to Durant. Now he's doing everything he can to hang on to Westbrook, including finding a way to get Paul George for Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, which is incredible to me. And all these people who were saying Danny Ainge fell asleep at the wheel, I'll just say this. You tell me, if Danny Ainge was offering all those huge draft picks that they have right now, is there any conceivable chance that Indiana would have said, nah, we don't want that. We'll take what they're giving us from OKC? I can't believe that to be true.
I can't either.
I know people were suggesting it, but there's just no way in the world that could be true.
Danny Ainge didn't want to rent the player for the year. Danny Ainge has a plan. I listen, as I said, it's not done. The plan isn't done. It wasn't, oh, yeah, Gordon Hayward, now we're good. I mean, they're still going to build. You have to wait and see what Tatum does, your draft pick as well. But I do think I like what they're building there. And as we mentioned, unless you got a few of those guys together, it's Cleveland's team until LeBron is not LeBron anymore or LeBron leaves, which I still somewhat question. So, Presti, I'm with you. And also the Warriors. Look at them. We talked about, it wasn't the stars we know are under contract and how they are going to be together a couple of years. I said, they're going to have trouble hanging on to their guys. Sean Livingston back, West back, Iguodala back. I thought for sure he was going to be gone back. They're keeping those guys as well as the stars. Now, in my opinion, the run to say for the next 5 to 7 years is ludicrous. I don't think there's any way they're all staying together that long. I give it a couple of more years, but man, they're doing it. They're keeping those guys. We all know about Durant taking less money, certainly helping from the luxury tax payment that's going out as well. So they're keeping everybody together. So all the movement, all the money that went around, and we do the whole thing a year from last year when Durant made us say Golden State and Cleveland in the finals, to me, nothing's changed. We've moved some pieces on the board a little bit, but I think we're going to look for the same outcome next year, and then we wait and see where the board moves again.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. You'll hear from our insiders on all of this NBA movement as we continue. Next, we're just getting started. Tons of big news out there on this 5th of July. Also coming up, when is honesty not even close to being the best policy? You'll hear a good example of it in this hour. But right now, and the biggest in significance, not in total dollars, was Kevin Durant staying in Golden State for a little bit less money. Our Tom Penn explains.
Here's what they did. First priority was Steph Curry, the full boat.
Right.
They're spending this money. They knew then they could go give Andre Iguodala more than they expected at 14.8. Sean Livingston was day one. They got him done at $8 million. So you're seeing it tick up.
Yep.
Now they're out of cap room. They never really used cap room. But if they want to keep their gang together, you come down here and they brought in David West at $1.5 million. They're still the same team. And they could re-sign Zaza in his own slot at 3.5. I'm going to assume that, okay?
Yep.
Now let's go to what this next move might be. And this next move might be, what did we say, either Crawford or Nick Young. So Nick Young could come for the $5.2 million exception. I've put him at 5. Mm-hmm. Let's put him in there. Jamal Crawford all of a sudden could maybe be that player
taking a big pay cut
that comes in at 5. So now they're over the cap. But now it's a tax story with Durant. So back to his optionality. Had he come in at the full 31.8, that cost them $42.7 million in luxury tax.
Right.
Now look at when he took his haircut and he comes out here and he brings it down to say the $25 million that they were saying he's going to start at. Now look at that difference. Watch the number and how much he saved them.
Wow.
He saves them that much money that then gave them the flexibility to do these other things and then add more veterans.
So what do you think?
Well, listen, I mean, we've seen other guys do this. We've seen Tim Duncan do it. We've seen Tom Brady do it in the NFL. Some players do it, some players don't. I mean, so it's whatever you think. Some are going to take their money, take the full boat. I don't think this is going to be something you're going to see a ton of people do, but not a ton of people can have the impact like that with the amount of money they can make.
All right, let's do Sports Center right now. All right, here we go. SportsCenter headlines begin with Gordon Hayward signing with the Celtics, sharing that decision in an article on the Players Tribune. The big question is, does that give Boston a legit shot to compete with Cleveland in the Eastern Conference? We're talking about that this morning. And other NBA deals like restricted free agent Otto Porter Jr. agreeing to a max deal with the Nets. The Wizards are expected to match that offer, sources telling us at ESPN. And Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks 4-3. Clayton Kershaw had a no-hitter going into the seventh. Struck out 11. He's been just on fire all year long. SportsCenter with Mike and Mike, brought to you by Jersey Mike's.
Rock this way with Jersey Mike's and Pepsi, and you could win the music trip of a lifetime. Stop in Jersey Mike's to enter. Jersey Mike's, be a sub above. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends August 14th. See official rules at PepsiRockThisWay.com.
A reminder, there are some stories you have to hear to believe. Introducing 30 for 30 podcasts, all new stories from the producers of the acclaimed 30 for 30 series. Subscribe now in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. All right, some Twitter through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Robbie tweets, the Clippers will be better than the Rockets. OKC will be a joke, and the Celtics will be in first place again. I don't agree with any of that. There's actually three separate statements there.
Clippers better than the Rockets.
Disagree.
Oklahoma City a joke. I don't know how they can be a joke.
Correct.
And
I disagree on both of those.
The Celtics could be in first place again. That's the one that could happen again, depending on the rest you get in Cleveland, right?
They're not going to be
last year.
They're going to be in first place again in the completely meaningless way in which they were in first place last year.
Yes.
So will they finish with the best record in the Eastern Conference in the regular season next year? That's possible. But that's not what anyone is thinking of when they think about what you're not making these moves because trying to hold on to the number one spot in the Eastern Conference regular season standings. Have they closed the gap between themselves and the Cavaliers with this move? I guess they've narrowed it.
I guess you could say you narrowed it, but
they're unquestionably better than they were.
They're better. It's a process. It wasn't a one-move thing for the Celtics. The only one of the one-move things we've seen is a one move when LeBron goes to Miami, a one move when he comes back to Cleveland, a one move when Durant goes to Golden State. Other than that, there's going to be some multiple moves for other teams.
How about this Oklahoma City will be a joke business? I think Oklahoma City has a chance to be really good.
I look forward to seeing where that goes, what happens with Russ and with Paul George there. But again, you just have to wonder as you watch the season go, because the two teams you mentioned have two big-time players who moved but are going to be free to move again. Paul George is going to be a free agent, and Chris Paul can as well. It's a player option for next year, so he can be free again. So you just wonder how much, if it's just 1 year you're going to see with these guys.
Michael Angeli tweets, is it fair to make Clayton Kershaw, Peyton Manning comparisons with great regular seasons and poor playoff performances? Peyton had a lot of very good playoff performances also.
Yes, he did.
He just lost some games, and some of them did not play as well. At the very end, when they won the championship, he was, because of injury,
yeah,
really sort of a shell of himself.
Sure, certainly.
But Kershaw, less so. Here we go. Kershaw is in line to have the lowest ERA. Okay, so this is good. Kershaw is in line. It's well done by Hembo there. Let me give Hembo a little gold star. We gave him some homework, and he did it.
There you go.
I wanted some context to the stretch of seasons that Clayton Kershaw is putting together. He is in line to have the lowest ERA in a 5-year span in baseball history. Now, think about all the different eras that we've had in baseball, including a period of time there in the 60s where they felt that they needed to lower the pitcher's mound because the pitchers were so dominant. Mm-hmm. And now we're in an era where they're hitting home runs at a higher rate than at any other time in baseball history, to the point that the conversation is, are the balls juiced? And Clayton Kershaw, over a 5-year span, has an ERA of 193. In that time, he's won 3 Cy Youngs and an MVP, has finished in the top 5 in voting every single year. He's 112-39 with a 2.09 ERA. The only pitcher of recent vintage with a more dominant 7-season stretch than Kershaw going back to 2011 was Pedro Martinez from 97 to 2003 at the height of the steroid era.
Right.
So Martinez, I think, over that period of time, was he the best pitcher you ever saw? for that stretch of time, he's got to be right up there. That little period. Again,
and I was always amazed because of his size too, just the way he threw the ball.
He was impossibly good.
In that
Kershaw's
time,
been that good. I mean, he's that good.
Oh yeah, Kershaw is that good.
He's that good.
But again, we wait for the postseason. You know, we wait for it to happen in the postseason. That's where we say, okay, been there, done that. Okay, you're great. We get it, and he is. He absolutely is great. I would go watch the guy pitch any day of the week. But from a baseball standpoint, right, when you start talking about lists and all timers, you know that your legacy's made in the post, and that's where he's going to have to show up next, right?
Who is more dominant in their sport, Clayton Kershaw in baseball or Joey Chestnut in hot dog eating?
Oh, Joey Chestnut.
You're a big fan.
Joey Chestnut, 10 years. 10 years with the mustard belt. 72 dogs the other day.
Mustard belt.
I mean, seriously. 10 champ. You know what? And this is Major League Eating, so there's a ton. He has like 40 records. So there's all kind of like a regular season, and then this is like the Super Bowl. He shows up, right? Gets it done. When the lights are brightest, Joey Chestnut is there chomping away. I know you get disgusted watching it as we're showing video.
It's so disgusting.
I
to
get
me.
it. I get it.
I can't even fathom it. The question I have, I know some people are offended by the whole nation. I'm not. I'm just nauseated by it. I'm not offended by it.
Right.
I just find it grotesque.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. The period of time after which you do this to when you don't feel awful, right? Like even these guys have to feel just awful
they
after
have
this
to.
physically.
I don't know.
Is it hours? Is it days? Or is it weeks?
It's a whole nother world. I mean, of what they're putting in them. I don't know. I mean, I've certainly eaten my share of things and felt it. You know, be it hot the one day with Jamel when I lost the bet to her. I mean, the day at home at my house was worse than me eating it. It was awful.
But you seemed fine the next morning.
Yeah, I was fine the next morning, but I'm not shoveling down, you know. He did 72, so most guys probably in the 30s or so. They're shoveling a lot of hot dogs. I mean, I would imagine it'd be a while. Now, I don't know what goes on after. You can only imagine what may go on after this thing. I don't know. But, man, that's got to stick with you for a while. But it's just – it's so tongue-in-cheek to listen to it. I just – Joey, ESPN threw up the graphic of championships, guys who have won that many. I thought it was great. And Joey talks about how he trains for it. He says – I loved his line that he says, it's not like I go to buffets. I'm not a buffet buster. I train specifically for this. The breakdown is, listen, I think it's entertaining. George Shea, when he does the introductions, it's so entertaining. I get a kick out of it. I like it. I know I went at it a little bit with Peter King, actually, on Twitter last night about it. Some people are offended by it. You don't like it, don't watch it. That's fine. I enjoy it. I watch it. And it's to me, it's entertaining. They make it entertaining. But I can see how you would be nauseated by it.
I can't even watch it.
I know.
I can't watch.
I get it.
It makes me feel sick to watch it.
And there are a lot of people. We did the over-under on me. I think it was 19? I don't think I would be over that. I really don't. I mean, that's not only a lot of food, but it's speed eating as well. I know 10 minutes isn't all this, but you're getting after it. And
yes,
man,
that's speed eating. No, that's fast.
I couldn't get that
eating
clip.
19 hot dogs in 10 minutes is
I couldn't do it.
It's everything. It's fast, it's gluttonous, it's disgusting, it's everything bad you could possibly be.
I think I could be in the teens. I just don't know where in the teens. But back to your original question. Yeah, Joey Chestnut, dominant.
So you would put him as the GOAT. Is he the GOAT? I don't follow this. I have to admit. I'm fascinated. Hembo, do a little research for me here. No, I'm kidding.
Kobayashi was a big-time eater as well, but he hasn't been in this. There was, some controversy.
He's a very small man, too.
Very small man, but he was a stud in this, and it was he and Chestnut that were the rivals there. But Kobayashi hasn't been in this for years. So a guy named Matt Stoney has been there, and I forgot the dude who came in second. I feel horrible. I forgot his name, but he is the one who says he wants to knock Chestnut off the crown. He doesn't want to wait till Chestnut retires. He wants to beat him at his own game. The kid who came in second, and I'll get his name. I apologize for it. So I like the attitude, but Joey Chestnut is just no one to be messed with right now.
And you know what your problem is, Mike, is that you're just a little bit late on your time. That had you been in the very first official Nathan's Famous International Hot Dog Eating Contest in 1972.
Yep.
Do you know how many the winner finished?
14.
That's correct.
14.
That's when there was no competitive eating, no major league eating, and it was just a hot dog eating contest like you might have at a state fair.
Exactly.
And they've turned it into something like this.
Oh, 40,000 people showing up at the corner there of Surf and Stillwell. Carmen Carmen Sincotti, I believe is how you pronounce it. Carmen Sincotti he's a third-ranked eater in the world. Matt Stoney is second. Obviously, Chestnut is first, but Sincotti got second. He ate 62.
62.
And that was, I think, it was a personal best for him as well. So, he stepped up pretty well.
I would hope it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, one man's personal best is another man's personal
is
worst.
Is that what you're striving for, to be your personal best?
Most certainly
I
not.
know our guy in Wimbledon strives to do his personal best all the time.
Okay, well, that's an excellent setup because I want to get to that as we continue here on Mike and Mike Plus. We have not, but I promise we will hear from the insiders on what all these NBA contracts mean. That's coming up next. We're Mike and Mike. Right now, a word from Goodyear. Golic expert drivers demand a lot from their tires. From fire trucks to race cars, Goodyear tires offer superior traction and handling and performance.
Goodyear offers superior tire performance where the road takes you for traction and handling. In challenging weather, make sure you choose Goodyear. Everything they learn making tires for expert drivers inspires what they roll into yours. Find the right tire for your vehicle at Goodyear.com. Goodyear, more driven. We're back after this on Mike and Mike.